Yeah, I'm Harmeet, working as a senior consultant in ThoughtWorks for 3.5 years now. These are social media contacts and other things. And
Hi, my name is Divya, and I've been with ThoughtWorks for almost 3 years now. And yeah, you can reach me out on any of the contacts that you see on the side. And yeah.
do you need a mic? I guess even if without using a mic, I'm audible, right?
Yeah. Me too? Yes.
Let's get rid of the mics. All right. So the first talk is about Tyco. So let's first discuss about the morning starts with a very gloomy scenario. We are starting with the issues with web automation. We all have worked on web automation and still are working on web automations, frameworks and tools. Issues, we are starting with the issues, but we'll come to the solution.
How many Selenium enthusiasts in the team?
Yeah.
How many of you
How many have worked on Selenium?
Selenium but not enthusiastic about it. Alright.
And language is Java. Mostly Java. JavaScript. Any other Python?
TypeScript.
TypeScript. Only
Node.
couple. Any general node. Okay. So in general, what issues we face when we start automating a project? We have listed a couple of them. They are slow, agreed, flaky, as hell, complicated setups, yes. Because you start automating a project, you start with a project, you are given a fresh project, you need to start up a new repo. Starting with a new repo, you start building up on whatever package building tool you are using, you start up building things on that, and then you have to maintain everything. Inconsistency.
Additionally, how we have all grown up in the industry learning the know-hows of how to set up a framework, what are the do's and the don'ts and the best practices.
So,
and they ultimately lead to complicating the matter rather than making it simpler for us. Do we agree? Yeah.
couple of nightmares. The first, who has seen this error? Stale element example. Cannot find element.
Yes.
That's a common thing. Just where's Apoor? Just keep incrementing the score. This is also similarity. Then the third one, unable to connect to host port 7055. Anyone who all know this except
Imagine running a suit and it fails on this, and then you have to rerun the entire suit.
What's the reason? Common reason for it?
Code is occupied. When great
Browser versions might be different. Browser versions
That's
change.
right. Another one is also right. Anyone else? Any other reason you see?
There was one hand from this side as well. You have seen this error, right? You remember this error?
It's like I am doing a backend testing, so I am seeing.
Okay.
Sure. So all this is because of the problems that we have mentioned over there. There's the test becomes slow. You start adding implicit or explicit weights into them. Then they are flaky as well. They become flaky. Sometimes responses do not come at time when you need it the most. And then there are complicated setups. You need to maintain the versions at the same level, or if you are using the same version of a Selenium WebDriver, you need to update the versions of the browsers as well, or vice versa. So these are complicated things.
Alright. So, this being the basic of how we actually know Selenium working, or say any other thing that you would assign to automate stuff. So the first being that you have a script that you're working with into your favorite language binding, because you are all using different languages. They utilize a WebDriver protocol that would act as a communication between what you're trying to automate to the WebDriver that you're selecting. Now this WebDriver depends on what you're using it with. And that WebDriver actually interacts with the interface of the browser that you're using a low-level protocol. That is how the communication is being set up. So this basically what we're trying to highlight here is there is a two-level communication that we are talking about. Also one of the main reasons why we have those three issues that we talked about. Not the setup one, but the first two issues, that it's slow and it's flaky. So this, I'll give you a short story after the next slide, but just try and understand this is a two-level interaction that is taking place when you're dealing with something like Selenium. Now when we talk about something known as browser automation, you can shut off your brains by saying that we do not know Selenium right now, right? So what we're trying to aim at is that we are using browser for what we want to automate, specifically in the case of a web application. So what we are trying to tell you is that the browser is capable enough of handling what you are trying to tell it to do. And how does that happen? It happens using a protocol known as Chrome DevTools protocol. So we'll come to this. Everybody is aware of this and I'll tell you how. So what we are trying to tell here is that when a browser that you're working on is powerful enough to handle the commands that you're telling it to perform on a particular platform that you're using, then you do not need the two-level interaction, right? So that interaction is being avoided by a tool that we have just mentioned here, that's Chrome DevTools protocol. So all the people who have used Selenium so far have used the right-click inspect monitor on your browsers, right? So that right-click inspect opens the drawer, which is the DevTool protocol that you're talking about, right? So that is the power engine of what derives the command that you give it. So typically, if you navigate to the source tab of that and start writing JavaScript, that's the enablement of an environment that the tool is giving you, right? So that is like an embedded thing that's in your browser and is a powerful tool that can help you actually automate without using any fancy stuff that you use with Selenium, right? So let me give you a quick precursor or a small story of how the actual relational difference is. So as of today, say I have 3 cars. I have a small car, I have a medium car and I have a very fancy expensive car. Now in all these things what I do is that my use case is same. Use case being that the moment I hit a highway, I need that I should not drive above 70. And the second being that wherever I go, I need to parallel park that car, irrespective of its size. Now I want the same thing to be done in all the 3 cars. So when we work with something like Selenium, it's actually like buying a robo and training it to drive these 3 cars and saying that the functionality remains the same, but you need to navigate through these 3 scenarios. Like one is a small car, one is a medium car and one is a very expensive fancy car. Is there any different way of parallel parking? There is one similar way of parallel parking. There is no different way. There is a standard way of how you parallel park a car. Second, is there any difference in maintaining the speed of all the 3 cars? No. You would still, try and sit steady and maintain the speed to 70, right? So this is when there is an external thing and it's communicating between what you want to get done and using the tool that you are facilitating it to do. Is this example clear? That what I am trying to get to do here? So my work here is training that robot to do the same functionality over 3 different things and training it to adapt to all these 3. Am I right? Okay. Now when we come to something known as browser automation, what happens is what is happening today as of with the cars. What I am doing is I am putting the basic functionality of these 3 things or these 2 things in the car. So these 2 functionalities in the car today are known as cruise control and automated parallel park. So what happens is in all the 3 cars, the configuration might be very different, but the base core functionality that I am embedding in the system still remains the same. So do I need a robo in this case? No. Even a human intervention with running this functionality works because my car itself knows how to cruise control to a speed that I am giving it and how to parallel park if I need to automate that stuff. Are we clear? So what is the basic difference? So when you are, the basic of flakiness comes from the fact that there is something externally getting trained or controlled to do the functionality that you are trying to tell it. So every time you need to adjust from something as expensive as a fancy car to something like Santro, say a small car, there is an adjustment required. But if that thing is inbuilt, it's capable enough of handling, okay, this is a little different with Santro, this is a little different with an expensive car, say BMW. So that's the difference. So if you look at this methodology, the something that's inbuilt would obviously perform better. It would handle stuff better because it's customized to how it is being embedded into that particular car. Understood?
People who worked on CSS any time, like people who have worked with UI devs or CSS, any one of you might have experienced. Browsers today are so powerful. It gives you the capability. Half of the work that the UI devs, I guess, in my team itself, they don't use any IDEs for their development, right? They only open up a browser. That's powerful enough. Even this presentation is in HTML. It's an HTML page. So this is something, the capability of a browser, displaying it a full page presentation on a page, and this is something that has come up with time. There were earlier tools that worked on a static page. Now we have everything that is dynamic. And we have problems because of that as well.
So
Automating this control, for example.
How many times have we faced a similar situation? And I'll give you another example as well.
What is a general approach taken in this case. Your test case is typing something into a text box and then you're waiting for a result. This is a typical scenario where the test case goes flaky. You're fetching something from a backend service. It may come in 1 second, it may come in 2 seconds. You have to put, you being like optimistic, you can be optimistic as write down 1 second of wait, or you can be pessimistic. That's what we generally end up being.
Problem here, if you are being like, you know, a Selenium geek and trying to say, wait for some element to appear, then God save you. It won't work. So, yeah, another very similar case to this, how many of you have worked with any social media plugin for the current project that you are working with? Any social media plugin? Okay, how many of you have used the latest web version of Facebook? Everybody uses it on phone. Okay.
Yeah.
So there is this thing on that page is that the entire page does not get refreshed, but then whenever there is a new update, it will not even scroll up. It will just give you a message that you have 2 or 3 new updates. Right? That browser mechanism is something that's dynamic. So imagine putting a test or a assert for something similar. You must have all seen that. It's very common in Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, right? So these are some typical problems where either you skip writing a test for these or you write and you agree that they'll be flaky, right? So when you're talking about browser automation, how does this problem get solved? Is that all these typical type of calls are basically XHR calls, XML HTTP request. So these work on the principle of the JavaScript AJAX that we know today, right? So these are calls that work asynchronously or work on the mechanism that you will poll after a while. So for example, if I have some update and you open the network inspector of your browser, every 10 seconds or 20 seconds you will see a call going saying, okay, if there is an update, I need to fetch it and show that there is a dynamic update on the page, right? So in these cases, the basic mechanism being that there is a request going dynamically and the response is also dynamic, irrespective of how the page is at the moment. So these are dynamic calls and a dynamic wait is required and a dynamic wait so that it can get loaded and you can wait for that to get handled in your automation suite. This with Selenium is tricky. This with any browser automation tool is a cakewalk because your XHR calls handling is a part of how the tool handles it. Right? We'll show you an example of that, but just a basic. Alright. So this is what you're here for, and this is the tool that we're going to talk about. So yeah, good.
What Tycho is, when you search it for the first time, this is what you see. But it's definitely not this. Taiko is a Japanese, literally a Japanese drum. And people, first time even when I started searching for the name, because both of us, we are contributors to the project, and the first time we heard about this team, the first image that came up was this one. This is definitely not the one that we are talking about. It is ThoughtWorks product, Taiko. This is the official logo. The whole introduction of the product is that it's open source web automation tool, the browser automation tool directly. It is available as an NPM library based on Chrome DevTools API, the same API that enables you to open up an inspect window and do all the stuff in your browser itself. It's based on the same principles. It is inspired by Helium and Puppeteer. How many of you have heard about Puppeteer and Helium? So Puppeteer works on the same principle. They use the Chrome DevTools API, the protocol. The Helium on the other side, it's written on the top of Selenium. It is a paid tool, but it's very intuitive. It's very like writing your tests just like you're writing in English. What ThoughtWorks did was got the best of the two worlds, combined them, took the power of Puppeteer, that the same protocol that Puppeteer follows, took that, and took the ease of writing test case from Helium and combined them and provided them as a free tool. So this is what Taiko is. It has integration, very well integration with Jest, Jasmine and Gauge. These are test runners. Jest is most commonly used, I guess, Jest and Jasmine. And Gauge is another product Gauge is a test runner that's provided by ThoughtWorks.
Alright, just in addition to the previous point. So when we talk about tools like Helium and Puppeteer, so why the need of Taiko is the most common question that we get, specifically during the market needs. So with Puppeteer, you need to understand one thing, though the API structure and the methodology of lifting Chrome Dev tools is the one that we are talking about. Puppeteer specifically isn't meant for testing. It's basically a web crawler, and the other thing that you can do with it perfectly is UI automation. It's basically for that. Now another little complicated thing with Puppeteer is the setup still remains tricky. You need to deep dive a little to integrate it with whatever you are still using. So that gives it a flavor of not a testing tool. So if you say, is it only meant for that? No, it's not. The core work is not testing for that. Another thing with Helium is, yes, it's the same API structure, and given the ease of how Helium also works is that you do not need to get into the complications of creating a framework if you're not sure of what you're doing. That's the main thing when you are in the day zero of a project and you are saying, okay, you're a QA, you need to build in an automation. Your first intuition is, okay, what automation are we doing? And if it's like UI automation, you are go to Selenium. But then if you need to walk through and understand your basics better and you want to try out something, it has to be simpler. And for that, Helium is something that is nowadays recommended or used. But the problem being, so if you're with a new project and you do not have approvals, you wouldn't mind using it. You would mind using a paid tool. So when you are in the experimentation phase and you need something very simple, also you need something that your devs don't mind using. Because whenever you have like a full-fledged framework in place and you say, okay, some test is breaking, can a dev fix it? They'll never touch your code. And generally team says like, no, it's your code base, so we don't know, we'll have to read it through, fix it, and then you do it. So with Tycho, that's very simple to maintain, and the devs will be like, let's see what's wrong. And we'll see why. Alright. Next thing, there's a point. So, yeah.
Is this framework works on IE or some other browser system?
We'll come to that. We'll get back to the previous picture. Let's just.
And can we write BDD format test cases?
Yes. If you're using Gauge, Gauge gives you that flexibility. Also, with Gauge, there is this simple thing that you can just run an init command and it will give you a basic. Like with Maven, if you say the startup, when you use Maven startup, it gives you a structure, right? So if you use Gauge init with Tycho, it will give you a framework or a structured framework, and then you can put in your files there.
You need to get this picture that this is a tool that is controlling a browser. This is a tool for browser, and there is a runner that will control what this tool does is.
Yeah.
Right. So the whole choice of writing BDD lies on what the test runner you are using.
Alright. Just a quick point here. So the mechanism or the way that we are talking about this uses a methodology known as REPL. Anyone aware of what REPL is?
People who are working on Python, what's a REPL?
Yeah.
Basically allows you to quickly check whatever code you're writing or thinking of writing.
Right.
Comes
So,
with, I think Java also comes with that
Yeah.
nowadays.
Okay, so just a quick definition and the functionality here because it's important on what we are doing. So how many of you have used JMeter here? Okay. So there is this thing with JMeter that you can record the script and then you can use the recorded script to rerun again and see what it is doing. So, but we all know that the JMeter scripts that it generates are bad. They're hardly usable if you use it for the extended work that you're doing. Now with REPL mechanism's full form is read, evaluate, play, loop. Right? So in this what happens is whatever you are writing in the short term is in command which depends on its success and failure. And then there is a script that gets generated which is the evaluation script, and then you can run that script and be sure that it will run. Why you will be sure it runs is because whenever there is a failure in the command, it will not get adapted. So if it's a failure while you are doing it and then you generate a script out of it, that command will not get evaluated because it failed. So whatever code that you have in the end is the one that was successful. So you can be assured that whatever you are running in that script is stable enough. So that is one thing that makes Tycho stable when you are running the script mechanism with this tool. Okay?
It is free to use and extend. Even you can be a contributor to the project. You can start contributing.
Your
to the
open
project.
source journey with Tycho. Alright, we have already covered Tycho is a ThoughtWorks product. So if you all know, Selenium is also a ThoughtWorks product. It was being worked by Stuart on that. And we have been trying to outdo ourselves on the WebDriver.io automations. And then we came up with Tycho because we wanted something simpler, and Selenium is something that is slowly dying until Selenium 4 picks up. But then, yeah.
Selenium is, yeah, maybe some of us like just added to the point that I'm using Selenium but not enthusiastic about it, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason tools need to be changed as well.
All right. Okay. So this is one common thing that I keep selling amongst the team is that Tycho is so simple that I can even teach my mom to automate. Like, why do I say that? So until unless I know that my present item window that I'm using, it has Node installed and Tycho installed, I can just tell mom that, just start typing English and you will know what to do. Okay, so why is that? Because the cover that we have written for the selectors that we use in this are smart. Smart as in proper English word smart. And we'll get to that when I'm doing a quick demo for you guys. But that is one of the biggest advantages that we have with Tycho. So if you are in a team where you are scaling up and you're teaching a manual testers to get onto the automation journey, teaching them things like XPaths, CSS manipulation, all these things becomes tricky because then you have to give them a very core basic of this is JavaScript, this is how DOM works, this is how you need to evaluate this. What if the DOM tomorrow changes? You need to make it dynamic enough so that it adjusts to what you are writing. All this is overwhelming in the first go when you're in your automation journey. I have been through that. So if I want to make them understand that what automation basic is and not what this complicacy is, Smart Selectors is a beautiful thing to teach. Another thing is that the one that we talked about, the handling of the dynamic calls, the XHR calls that I was just talking about. And the other thing, okay, how many of you have experience with stubbing and mocking in your UI automations? Oh, just one, okay, cool. So there are, quick example, there are a few instances where you need to basically, you know that one of the resultant page or the API is being still worked upon. And you wouldn't know that what the resultant would be, but you have a similar JSON file you know would be returned in that response cases. So what you do is that you make a mock out of that JSON and say, okay, whenever this API is being hit, just redirect here. Now for this in Selenium, you really need to write a proper function which handles that call, and you need a stub running so that you can point to that stub and then
it doesn't happen.
I'm coming to that.
Yeah, but couldn't you use groovy mocking capabilities which would make it?
You can, but what if I tell you that it's just a one sentence work with Tycho?
But Groovy does the same thing. Groovy mock, and you just create an object and then assign whatever you want it to mock, and it creates an object of that particular kind and passes it along straight away as you wish it.
But then how would you integrate with the mechanism that I'm saying? You're writing your automation, and in that I'm saying that this resultant needs to get redirected to the mock that you have created. I'm not saying that mock creation is something I'm putting here. I'm saying the complicacy of integrating that mock redirection in your Selenium. You need to write a proper function which handles the redirection.
Maybe a couple of lines as opposed to. As
what I'm
opposed
saying
to
is this is just one line.
This was
just
one
one line.
example of using that. So interception in case of Tycho, we'll see the examples. So an actual real world example is I used it in my project. The page had Google Analytics linked to that, and my test automation, whenever the suite runs, it also gives some data that this is being used, the web page is being visited. I can totally block that with one line. So one particular request from my page, the Google Analytics, never creates a noise in the actual analytics. I get the actual data. That's a one-line thing in Tycho.
So yeah, interception, your redirection, your pointing to the mock, all is just one-line code in Tycho. You do not need to think twice before saying, okay, this redirection can be, named again in a Selenium structure. Then I have to put in code that please point to this, and then check with an assertion, okay, is it really pointing to that or not? So I'll come to that. I'll give you a quick demo of how this interception
We
happens.
can move to the demo.
Yeah. And the final part is the recorder that we already talked about in REPL. Okay. Now I've already told you about this. So yeah, the installation is pretty straightforward. The only thing that you require in your system is Node.js installed globally. So if you have Node.js installed globally, the only command that you need to run is npm install -g Tycho, so that your global node knows that the Tycho is installed globally. Are we on the same page? Yeah. Okay. And one more important thing that we need to get notice here is that Yarn and npm are the most widely used package managers for JavaScript.
Most of us, I guess, maybe already using the people working on JavaScript, they might be using Yarn at least now. It's been in the market for a couple of years now.
Yeah. Also, because Tycho's underlying layer is similar to how you write your Node and JS projects in general, integrating there as like, in Java we require like the dependency or the jar. For Tycho, what you need to do is just add it to the JavaScript project by typing npm add Tycho -- save dev. So it'll just point to the JavaScript project that you're using, and then you can just additionally use it there. It's not complicated at all. It'll read the structure itself, and you will be good to go in your JavaScript prompt. Alright, so let's quickly just go to the demo and see what I'm blabbering about since 15 minutes now.
Much of talking now.
Yeah. Alright, so I'll just walk you through a simple use case that we're using. And yeah. Is everybody able to see my screen?
No.
Maybe
Could
not.
increase the font size.
Increase the font. Just let us know when we can read at the end in the last rows as well.
Can we now?
Or should we go even bigger? We can use a bigger font.
Is that comfortable enough? Cool? Alright. So let me just walk you through one of the examples that we'll be telling you, and then I'll show you how Tycho enables that. So how many MMT users in the house?
I am from MMT.
MMT, oh cool. Alright. Okay, so the use case that we are doing here is that we are just quickly navigating to this MyBiz section of the website, and it's under the More section that you can see in the front tab. And what we are going to do is just pick up this page where you need to sign up for free. And when it signs up, it will navigate you to a sign up page again where you have to log into the credentials that you have just created. Am I right about this?
Yes.
If you have to tell someone over phone that you need to do something very similar. Just imagine you're telling someone over a phone that, okay, go to this page and go to some other page. That's a human, it's very easy.
Okay.
How do you specify as a human that, okay, on the top left, there's a lot of repeating text on the page.
Yeah.
But over a phone, you tell someone, give instructions that do this. This is a very
Okay.
similar thing that a Tycho understands actually.
So as simple as this, I just type Tycho, I enter the prompt, and I then start talking to the person on the phone. How would I say? I'll say, okay, now that you're on the page, please, you're on the PC, please open a browser.
So this is the REPL that we were talking about. This the prompt change, right? This is the REPL. Open browser, the first step is done.
Yeah, then I say, please go to this website that I just mentioned. That's
I guess on the you need to
okay.
clear the screen first.
No,
Because
that
people
Ashish, visible for you?
people at the back are able to view this. Yeah, okay. So this is just me having a conversation. I've not done any, rocket science here till now. So I'm just saying that please open this website, right? Then I say, there's this thing known as more, and then the person on the conversation say, I can see 3-4 mores in the page. I can say a more here, I can say a more, near the Citibank icon that we have. There's one more, no more. Which more are you talking about? Then I say, I'm talking about the more that's on the right side of the gift cards, right? You understand that? How do I type it here? I say, click more, that's
to the right of. So imagine doing this in XPaths.
yeah.
So there is nothing kind of a frame, like suppose it's in the frame, so we have to define something for the frame.
No, it's intelligent enough to read. So I'll just show you.
See what it is. You can type this.
No.
Windows icon.
Wait. Did I type something wrong?
No. It was open, but the focus changed. It's too late.
Yeah. So can you see the red image? Okay. let me just rerun it once and I'll show you again. Okay. So just point at the red focus that it defines. Can you see it click the mode in the right of the, right?
Yes.
Now I say please click on the it just navigated to the page that I was talking about. So you did not even need to right click, open, inspect any of the things on the page. Given that this is not even the project I'm working on and I do not know the structure and I'm just prevalently just working on a flow that I understand needs to be automated, right? Okay, now imagine the phone conversation continues and I say that okay, what you need to now do is fill up your full name below the text box that's mentioned that says your full name. The same conversation that I was having.
There are 4 text boxes here.
Right. Okay. I'll come back to this error that is being on the page and explain what is happening, but let's just focus on the page that I am currently on. Alright, okay. So when I'm on the new page that I'm talking about, what I need to say is,
The word is right. The way you say something on the over of that, okay, write your name. A2 and input field. That's another keyword.
so question here, how does it know to write my name on the first text box without even telling me which text box it is because of the chronological order of the text box that's written on the page. So when you write right, it'll automatically go to the next one.
The default focus.
Exactly. Now imagine I'm saying, okay, move to the next tab, right? What I need to just type here is press Do you see it navigated again? I'm doing nothing. And this is plain English. I'm still talking on the phone saying that do this. Okay.
So how do we put the SSL to verify that it's doing the right thing?
I'll put that in one of the things. I'll say once you click on the sign up for free text, you should be navigated to a text that you see on the next page. I'll put an assertion for that. Okay. Okay. Again, I say right. Now pay attention to this because I'm using the below functionality that I was just talking about. So I'm saying punch in the phone number below the text field that says contact number. Same English. Just follow that.
But sometimes tabs, clicking tab would take you some different link or something. So how we went?
Different link. Yeah, you mean
some hyperlink. You are clicking the structure of the page is not that
Okay.
good.
Okay. So
Currently I am with the first name, and the moment I clicked on tab, it would take you some other.
so the tab sequencing of the page is not very well
yeah.
defined.
So this is not the only thing you can use. So I do not have like sufficient time to show you the entire Smart Selector series, but if you go to the documentation, you can still use XPath with typo. You can use a $sign and then put your XPath inside the single quotes, and it would use XPath the way exactly it uses in Selenium. There is no difference in that. So it's not like they are taking away anything, it's just that they are making the reading and everything a little smarter.
Even when you are not using a tab, you can use the next example that Divya is going to show.
Yeah, so I'm saying write this phone number.
Equal from MMT, do you have validations on the length?
This page is not
We'll
hard.
see.
This is not many projects, so I'm not sure.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, but we are repeating everything like right. Do we have something where right will say that this right will go with all the data?
Everything on
Data
page.
driven style.
No, that's not currently possible. That you can do in your project if you write a wrapper on top of the rights, multiple rights.
Correct.
That's possible, but not
Because this is
current.
repeating again and again.
It is repetitive, but this is the way automation has been always. Like we cannot I haven't seen any framework or any tool that directly asks me about the JSON object and directly populates it in all the fields. Under the hood, you need to do these repetitive tasks. So this is giving you control over the browser. You need to, again, this is what we do every day, right? Write multiple times on the same thing. Even tabs I have seen. Do 6 tabs. Tab, 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 tab. Press tab, tab. That's also.
Okay, I'm not sure why it's not reading contact number, so let's just stick to tab for this while.
So there would be multiple text boxes which says contact number.
Yeah.
And if you will pass below the contact number. there
So
would
then
be
you,
That's bad design actually.
yeah.
But you can't because as a tool, it should be working fine as my intent. So there could be a page where one thing, there could be multiple contact numbers you can enter.
That's the example we used in the previous page, that there are multiple modes on the page. And I specifically mentioned, please click the mode that's next to or to the right of gift card.
Like if we have contact number and alternate contact number,
Huh.
it will go to alternate contact number or contact number. Let's say sequentially alternate contact number.
It's the exact string match, so
Exact
contact
string
number.
match.
So the text should be the exact match.
Yeah. So for those of you who debate for the fact that the text can get changed or you're not working with something that's fixed, then please stick to the original pattern of using your IDs, because IDs do not change. We are not promoting that do not use IDs, but just saying that when you are on that journey where you do not know this, it's damn simple. I'm just having a conversation with you and writing that, right?
There is no need of locators.
Not so far.
Like we want to mouse over something.
You can. Hover is another command that you can do.
Yeah,
You
the
can do
question-
hover, you can do highlight, you can do enter, anything.
Like somewhere JavaScript is using, so how can we?
So you can, like I'm writing write, you can just write the keyword hover. That's it. So I'll walk you through the documentation. Let's just finish up with the flow.
If we have to read some script, means there is some value that comes from the script, like graph is there and there is some script behind that. So we have to just read the script in the string. And so how we do it?
Read the script. Sorry, I did not get that.
JavaScript is using and like yes, inner HTML, like we want to access.
So is that an element that you're expecting on your UI too?
Yes.
Okay, then you just simply put an assert for the text that you're expecting. So I'll do that in the sign up part that I'm doing right now. Okay? Okay. So now I'm doing
There was another question.
yeah.
So how does the wait, so right now you open the browser and we are writing it. So browser has been opened.
This is you think it how does it wait for?
When you are writing, so how does it activate?
So the benefit of working this close to a browser is that browser knows everything, and there are multiple events that are raised when a page is loaded. One common is generally asked that the DOM loaded, completed or not. This is one thing that we do for reducing flakiness in Selenium. But there are other small events that a browser raises, and in a well-crafted website, your performance engineers or your UI developers, they focus on this thing that the code is listening to the events that are raised by the browser. There are events on the first meaningful page, the first pixel page. Whenever there is a single pixel that's visible on the browser, that's an event the browser raises. There is another event for the first meaningful page when every functional element on a page is actually usable. Those all events, you can directly listen to them. These functions that we are using here, they are using the first meaningful paint event. They are listening to the first meaningful paint. Whenever so they are waiting for that event. They are not waiting for a particular time. That's a real time thing that they are doing. So this is also configurable.
Right.
So you can use, if your page is not doing that, if your page is not raising events at the right time, even you can do that. Using Tycho, you can extend Tycho to, there is a simple function in Tycho that you can use to make it listen to some events. That's how you wait in this case.
And even it could handle the Windows pop-up like authentication.
Yes,
mention,
yes.
it could handle.
So yeah, so there is a beautiful function known as alert. So you can use that. So whatever event that you're listening to or whatever pop-up that you're talking about can be handled by that.
Windows
Yes,
pop-up
yes,
which comes
yes,
like for
yes.
the save, for the open,
Yes.
or even the application, some application which comes with the login credentials, and we used to handle it with on the URL.
It can. It's just a one-line
or
code
with
for
the
that.
logo or with something
Anything.
else.
I'm not sure about the CAPTCHA though, because that's a different handling mechanism.
Capture
Yeah, no.
different solution.
The one that you're talking about, like the pop-up box, you
Yes.
can.
And
So there are two things, alert
many
and
things.
pop-up box, both are being handled as a keyword, so you can just put in your values in that and it will handle it.
So even if, like, how many of you have ever tried mocking a geolocation? did that? How did
On a
you?
mobile, so we have a mobile application. In that we have used the free, there are mock applications. So actually I had to verify the backend data with the mocking whatever.
So I'll give you an example. If, for example, on a food ordering website, Swiggy, for example, you just click on detect my location. You do that and it detects your location, fills up. As a user, that's a night where your tests may be running somewhere in AWS code build machine that's located in North Virginia, and that's the location that will get there. You will never be able to assert anything. If your APIs or your web page depends upon calculating distance from which restaurant is closest to yours, that's a North Virginian restaurant. I'm not sure whether the client will be serving in that location or not. Mocking a geolocation is what Tycho one-line thing. You can mock a geolocation, provide the lat and long, that this is the geolocation that my browser will be using. Network throttling, you want to test your website, whether how does it perform on a 2G network, how does it perform when it's offline, how many elements are clickable when it's offline. That's a one-line thing. You just need to mention network throttle, good 2G, 3G, Wi-Fi, these are all the options. Another thing, viewports. So this responsive web designs, this the current size of the window, it matches very much with the iPad design. So when you have to resize your pages, you can just specify using Tycho. There are functions you can read in the recommendations further, that where you only specify resize the window to iPhone 6. That's a single string.
That's device
And everything
emulation.
is taken care of.
So it changes the user agent also. So the design could be responsive, but I would say code base could be different. So you are taking the MMT example and taking the same example. So if you open the mobile site, design would be different. So does it change the user agent
You can
also?
change the user
Can you do
agent.
it right now?
If using intercept, you can.
Yeah.
So
So let
interception
me
call,
just
it
walk
will. There is an example on the documentation. You can see that when a request is going out from the browser, the interceptor API can intercept a request and it can change whatever you need to change, and then forward it. In my case, I did it personally. I did it for a security test where I changed the security token on runtime. So my use case was that the user is logged in, but then the security token expires. And what's the next screen that's shown up? So for doing that, using Selenium or somewhere, I'll have to do some trickery around some other libraries that externally control my browser's local storage. But in this case, whenever a request is originating from the browser that I'm acting on doing something on, while on the fly, I can intercept the request, change something, and then forward. Same is the case with user agent. You can change payloads.
Alright, so I'll just quickly finish.
Errors. What?
Suppose if there is a script error for this and
You can read the console as well. Even
so here you were just typing one line.
Yeah.
When I'll be running a suit, I'll be having a script for this.
I am coming to that. We are not done with the example yet.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm
You can
just
take it
writing the
after this.
password and then say.
So these examples, this will take time. We'd recommend you going to the website of Tycho, searching for Tycho and just going through the documentation. There are beautiful examples on that. And we are still building on that. Diagnostics is one thing that we are building on. So diagnostic is just giving you an idea of what's the performance metrics of your website.
I just got a query with regards to passwords. Now the passwords are in the clear here, right? So if this goes into a script and it goes onto GitHub, that's a big security flaw.
You can
So you
manipulate
need to-
that. So it's a normal, say a normal node script look like. So you can actually do a args passing, and those args can actually be secured in your CI/CD wherever you are picking the stuff from, and then you can pass it to the script, and then you
Okay.
can just go ahead. So it's not like you have to physically just enter the value here.
This
It
is
can-
something, remember, you're telling over a phone, right? You cannot tell star, 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 star.
No, obviously not, but you wouldn't be telling them to write, as in you won't be telling them the password to type in.
Yeah, if you're saying, just pick a password that has one capital letter, 8 characters, one number, one special character, they're free to choose whatever they have to. And if you're using the same mechanism of passing it into the script, you can use the args functionality. So I'll show you a dummy script also of how the argument passing is done. FYI, if you go to my GitHub account, I have 7 examples stated for you there. giving you small snippets of each of the things that we are doing here. You can just pick up those examples and run in your local. So it's just a script that you need to run with Tycho and the script name, and it will run. And how to run with the arguments, I've given a stated example in the readme also. So you can pick that. Okay, now we have clicked on the sign up button and we have navigated away to the page. So this is completion of my one flow. Now somebody was saying, how do I assert that, I have reached this page, right? So it's like,
the whole aim is to get a flow sorted, start at the starting, and then incorporate that flow into your test suite. So we're moving towards that, the final goal.
so can you see this? I just put an assertion on the fact that when I navigate away, I just want to see where it's nothing that will break your flow. So once you're sure that this is the flow I'm going to map onto, just remove it from the script, not a biggie. Alright, so this is the basic flow that we were talking about.
So when
Yeah.
you have something like make my trip, the password thing, you can replace this whole thing by process.env.password and pass it on from runtime.
But the
Yep, so let me
extension
just
of
show
that-
you how the script exactly looks like.
Extension of that class, like he have just coded that and he make some class with which extension, like
Sorry, didn't get that.
It's a JavaScript file, so at the end of the day, it will end with a JS extension.
URL looks like. So what I say
it's
is,
still makemytrip.com.
okay. So what I'll do is I'll navigate away from Make My Trip to some other travel site so that I know how redirection looks like. Okay. And there is one more case. Say for example, I need to test the negative scenario that particularly when I hit this URL, I should not be navigated to any UI page. It's an error. You do that in some cases of testing. Then how do you do that? So let's look at both the cases. If I just type intercept. Is it visible now?
Can everyone read this?
Yeah. Okay.
Tomorrow we can go to the top.
Alright, so what I've done is just say that this please intercept this website. So it said I have intercepted. Now what happens if I say go to this website again?
This is a particular functionality where it totally blocks the request.
So if you can see, the same browser just blocks the workflow. Just one quick last example of the redirection that we're talking about here. So what if I say then just intercept? Oh yeah, sorry. Thank you.
So instead of going to Make My Trip, when you ask your browser to go to Make My Trip, it goes to somewhere else, redirected. Went to OIV.
So the command was still saying that go to Make My Trip, but then the redirection just worked and it navigated away to some other website. Okay, one last example, we are running out of time, is with the mock that I wanted to show. So I'll quickly open a new window and show you what am I meaning to say. So how many of you are aware of the Postman mock creation or have heard of this?
Little bit right.
Okay, so I have a very simple example here which with I work. So I have this PNG image that is from Google Maps, and what am I doing is that this is the image, and I'm saying that whenever I hit the navigation with this, it should point to the mock that I have created. So the mock in this that I have created is something like this. So if I hit it from here, so it would give me something like that. So when my mocks gets hit, it should show me something similar, right? So what is my mock URL and how do I navigate away to this in my Tycho script is that I'll just copy the URL for this.
Particularly useful when you have costs associated with the calls to third parties.
Yeah.
You can mock them, totally block, and still get the desired result.
Alright, so let me just quickly manipulate what I'm doing with my mock. just retype that. And I'll just replace the first. Is this clear? I've just done the same thing that I was doing in the previous step. Just the first command is the image that I was talking about, and second is the mock that I'm pointing to. Pretty straightforward. So this has intercepted now, and now let me go to the first image that I was talking about. So I'll just I'm saying just navigate away to this. Right, so I'll just quickly go back to my browser so that I know it's there. So I'll say go to this. So can you see it navigated away to the mock that I had created. One very interesting thing to see here is, since I was pointing out to a mock, the URL in the browser did not change. It's still the same URL that I had hit from my command, but it is now pointing to my mock. Right, so this is a typical use case of how you use a mock. You say that whenever you hit this URL, you are being navigated away to the mock structure that I've created. So the URL will not change. So this is just one line command that you're using and just repointing to your mock, and it will work like any other mock structure works for you.
Similarly, you can have JSON replaced, like you can replace the call with a JSON. If your web page is sending something and expecting a JSON in return, that's the exact JSON you can just mention it as a string.
In that case, what you would need to do is just the second part that I have put in as a URL, you just need to put the Java object structure with the JSON that you wanted to refer to. Alright, so let me just quickly show you the documentation and then we can wrap up. There were two more things. Those are covered as example in my GitHub repo, and you can go to there. So there are two plugins, in fact 3 plugins that we use with Tycho. Those are external plugins that you can download in your Tycho interface that we are working with, and the commands of how you do that are also on the document that I'm pointing to. So those two beautiful 3 plugins are: one, screencasting, second is diagnostics, and the third is React. So let me just give you a quick review of that. Screencasting is that the entire flow that you are running through can be recorded in a form of a GIF. If you try to do that with your existing frameworks, you again need to go through the life cycle of integrating a function and then telling it when to start, when to stop, and where to navigate away to. When you're using a screencasting plugin, all you need is two commands to use. That's just start screencast and stop screencast, and it would create a default location where it will point to you in your own Tycho framework folder, and it will create a GIF out of the entire flow that you've been running through. So that's one plugin. Another one is diagnostics. So the Chrome Dev Tool protocols that you're using gives you a performance tab when you open right-click inspect on your browser. So that has been lifted into Tycho, and you can use it under the plugin known as Tycho Diagnostics. So you can run the diagnostic test on the page that you currently want by just using commands start tracing, stop tracing. That's it. You'll have the entire diagnostic report in your console. You can also use it to run your performance metrics. Just type the command get performance metrics, and on the particular page that you are on, it will give you the correct diagnostics of that performance of the page that you are running. So it's basically a cover lifted function of what your Chrome Dev tools give you, but a very powerful way of doing that. Okay. Alright, where was I? Yeah, I was telling you for the second one that you need to just change the cover, and this is where your documentation for Tycho is. It's tycho.gauge.org, and then you can just navigate away and look at all the actions that it gives you. Oh, by the way, emulate network being the first one. Yeah. So yeah, we are done with what we wanted to do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So in the starting to the news feed in the FB, the example you talked about, the example. So how would we be testing those things? Like if we go with the async option, we go one by one, and we don't know when that news feed or you have two new objects, it will appear. So something in the background should be running, and
again event.
So what?
Totally event-based thing.
So what should we?
So I showed you an example in my script. You can actually see it on my GitHub. I'll just show you again with what I have here. So if you look at this example, this is the line that I'm talking about. If you have one event that loads that, you need to know the name of that event and then you can wait for it.
But in a sequential manner.
No, if you look at how you write normal JavaScript, it need not be sequential. That's what I said. Whatever capability you would be using in your normal JavaScript, the way you write your JavaScript, you do not write it sequentially. You write it from the fact that it can run in whatever fashion that you have written it, right? So in that way you can very well utilize it. It need not be sequential.
I guess the time.
We can take it later. I can give you a few examples.
After the session because
Yeah.
the people are
What tool are you using for the reporting?
Sorry, come again.
reporting.
That would depend on which
runner actually.
Which
So like for us, Allio reporting will be.
Allio reporting, you can integrate with Allio reporting. Depends which tool are you using for generating reports.
So for us, I'm using Java with Selenium.
Okay.
So I use
Surefire reporting.
Yeah, otherwise, I mean, if you integrate it with Jest or if you do it with Gauge, they have their own reporting.
Have you seen
software
the
and
Gauge
that
reporting?
Gauge reporting
Yeah,
is very,
Gauge
very
reporting
elaborate.
is very good. It's very close to what the Allio reports are.
I use Jasmine and Allio reporting.
Yeah, so the same could work with here. So if you're using these scripts with Jasmine, you can very well use it. Yeah, everything. And they are exactly the same named keywords as you say them.
Keyboard and mouse interaction.
Yeah. So that's about Tycho. Thank you guys
Thank
for
you
being a
very much.
wonderful audience.
And
Can you share your GitHub?
stickies available for feedback.
It's the RAKHID.
You can write.
Guys, the feedback is very important to us, so feel free to write the feedback and we'll start the next session afterwards.
It's node based. It's node based.
Humble request to everyone, please provide.
Please provide feedback.
You can write down your feedback, pass on stickies, write down feedback on the two boards here.
Yeah. So we have put 2 boards, so you will just be getting the sticky. So be it content, be it speakers, be it anything that you observed into the session, so just pass on your feedback.
You can paste it here.
Constructive, anything that you think it was good, improvement, please pass on the feedback.
Yes, it can be. Yes. Yes, that device emulator for the dynamism that you're talking about depends on what kind of call you're using on the page and the XHR file and the device.
On the default thing, you can just write iPhone pixel.
Oh, one very important thing.